"What kind of world is this?" murmured the aging merchant, staring at the parchment that carried his future, where blood no longer binds families and love is replaced by signatures? It was 1830 in Edo, the grand capital of Tokugawa, Japan. The streets bustled with traders. Tea houses glowed under paper lanterns, and merchants counted their coins under the watchful eyes of samurai who despised them. But beneath this calm order was a quiet revolution, one not fought with swords, but with ink. Adoption, once a sacred act of compassion, had become a calculated tool of power. Families were no longer built through birth, but through choice, often for the sole purpose of protecting or stealing fortunes. In the Tokugawa era, Japan was a society of strict hierarchy. Samurai, farmers, artisans, and merchants sat in rigid order. Merchants were considered the lowest in status, yet paradoxically, they were often the richest. They lent money to samurai, owned warehouses, and ran Japan's economic engine. Still, law and tradition restricted them. Only blood heirs could legally inherit property and business rights. For those without sons, death meant the loss of everything they had built. So they discovered a clever escape: adoption. By adopting a man as an heir, a merchant could legally transfer wealth and continue his family line, even if that son had no blood connection at all. It began innocently, aging merchants adopting trusted clerks or nephews who had proven loyal. But soon, greed crept in. Adoption turned into a market of opportunity, where friendship became inheritance and loyalty became business. A struggling merchant could adopt a wealthy partner to save his estate, while a cunning clerk could manipulate his way into fortune by becoming family. It was the perfect crime that broke no laws. Edo's upper-class townsmen began treating adoption like an investment. In the narrow lanes of Nihonbashi, merchants discussed heirs the way others discussed trade. "He is clever, loyal. Perhaps I'll adopt him," one would say, as though buying insurance. For the Tokugawa government, this was acceptable, as long as taxes were paid and property managed properly. They saw no harm. But the truth was darker. Adoption gave rise to manipulation, betrayal, and moral decay hidden beneath polite smiles. One of the earliest notorious cases occurred in Kyoto. A rice merchant named Genzo, old and childless, trusted a younger trader named Ichiro, a man known for charm and wit. Genzo saw in him the son he never had. When illness struck, he adopted Ichiro as heir, granting him full control of his property. But within a month of the adoption, Genzo died under mysterious circumstances. Rumors spread like wildfire. Some said he had poisoned him, others that he had coerced him into signing the papers. Yet the adoption was legally sealed. The law protected Ichiro, and he inherited everything. Kyoto whispered, "The cleverest thief is the one who breaks no law." Such stories multiplied across Japan. The practice spread through merchant cities like Osaka and Edo. It was no longer shocking for a man in his 30s or 40s to suddenly become someone's son. Business alliances were sealed through these family contracts, and adoption houses even emerged, offering to connect rich masters with ambitious heirs. It became a social mechanism to survive and to steal. At the heart of this phenomenon stood the Mitsui family, one of Japan's oldest and most powerful merchant dynasties. Founded in the 17th century, their name commanded respect in every trading post. By the early 1800s, the head of the family, Mitsui Hachiroemon, had grown old. He had no biological son. Two nephews waited eagerly for their inheritance, both driven by greed. But the man Hachiroemon trusted most was not family. It was his accountant, Taro Saito, who had served him faithfully for 30 years. One frosty winter morning, Hachiroemon made a shocking decision. He summoned his family and declared, "From this day forward, Taro Saito shall be my son." The room fell silent. His nephews shouted in outrage, accusing Taro of manipulation. But Hachiroemon's word was law in his house, and the Tokugawa courts recognized his right to adopt any heir he chose. The documents were signed, the witnesses approved, and the Mitsui heir changed forever. When Hachiroemon died, Taro inherited everything: the wealth, the properties, and the Mitsui name. Overnight, the humble accountant became Mitsui Taro, master of one of Japan's most powerful families. The nephews tried to challenge the will, but the courts dismissed their claims. Adoption is family, the magistrate declared, and family cannot be undone. Yet, in the markets and tea-houses of Edo, whispers followed Taro forever. Some called him loyal, others called him a thief in a silk robe. This story ignited a wave of similar acts. Merchants began seeing adoption as a masterstroke of business survival. In Osaka, a silk trader adopted his business partner weeks before death. In Nagoya, a widow adopted a loyal clerk to retain her late husband's estate. Each case blurred the line between duty and deceit. Some adoptions were born of respect, others out of calculated greed. The Tokugawa officials, overwhelmed by the number of inheritance disputes, often ruled in favor of whoever had the legal documents. Paper became more powerful than blood. By the 1850s, the situation had become so rampant that Edo society quietly nicknamed it the paper heist. Merchants used the system to protect wealth from taxes, rivals, and even relatives. Samurai who had lost their stipends after years of peace joined the system too. Many noble warriors, stripped of purpose, sought adoption into wealthy merchant families for survival. It was a world turned upside down. Warriors became traders, clerks became masters, and the definition of family was rewritten. The system's collapse began with scandal. In Osaka, two men arrived at the same court, each presenting valid adoption documents claiming to be heir to the same dying merchant. Both had seals, both had witnesses, both had lawyers. The court was stunned. The case dragged on for years, and by the time judgment came, the entire estate had vanished in bribes and fees. The court's ruling was simple, yet damning. When greed becomes law, justice becomes meaningless. By 1868, Japan's world changed forever. The Tokugawa rule ended, and the Meiji Restoration swept the country toward modernization. Western-style civil laws were introduced, and the government redefined family structures. Adoption remained legal, but was placed under strict regulation. Now, one needed proof of relation, witness verification, and state approval. The age of the merchant adoption heist was over, but its legacy remained deep within Japan's new social fabric. The adopted heirs of that era laid the foundation for modern Japan's industrial empires. The Mitsui family continued to thrive, building banks, trade houses, and eventually the Mitsui Group. The Sumitomo and Iwasaki families, too, carried traces of adoption in their lineage. What began as desperate survival during the Edo era became the seed of corporate inheritance that shaped Japan's modern economy. Historians later reflected on this strange era with mixed judgment. For some, it was a sign of ingenuity, how common men outsmarted rigid social hierarchies. For others, it was moral decay, a time when loyalty was sold for gold. But one truth remained. The merchant adoption heist revealed how human ambition always finds a way around the walls built by society. Even today, Japanese corporate families often preserve the tradition of adopting capable heirs to continue family businesses, proving how deeply the Tokugawa system imprinted itself on culture. But unlike the past, these modern adoptions are open, honest, and often celebrated. The deception is gone, but the idea remains. Ability matters more than blood. In the end, the Tokugawa merchant adoption heist was not merely about wealth, it was about identity. It showed that in a world ruled by class and birth, some men found freedom through cleverness, even if it meant bending morality. They mastered the art of survival through the power of paper. The story closes with a haunting image, an old merchant holding his seal, whispering to himself before pressing it onto adoption papers. If blood cannot protect what I built, perhaps law will. In that quiet moment, Japan changed forever. And the moral is clear. When greed replaces love and law replaces conscience, family becomes a transaction. The Tokugawa merchants may have won their fortunes, but they lost something greater, the soul of kinship itself.